Revealed. The incredible journey of Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project, a life-changing sleep. The town of Lankridge buzzed with whispers after the news broke. It was a chance for greatness, a chance for David Green to grab hold of the future. With war still fresh in everyone's minds, this project promised national security. But at what price? The weight of what lay ahead settled thick on his chest as he watched neighbors gather in the diner, igniting debates fueled by fear and ambition, excitement and dread. David, a 27-year-old mechanic, stood there rooted, feeling like a single leaf caught in a brewing storm. Raised in a family of farmers who had cultivated the land with hard work and honesty, he learned the value of perseverance at his father's knee. Yet here he was, confronted by a decision that could reshape his very essence. The Cold War-esque grim specter draped itself over Lankridge like a dark cloud, and from his father's haunted eyes, David saw the depths of disappointment, the scars of battle still fresh. He recalled Sunday dinners filled with laughter and home-cooked meals, the aroma of roasted chicken mingling with the warmth of kinship. How could his father, a war veteran, now seem so distant? How could he view David's ambition as a gamble, rather than the culmination of hard work? But opportunity had arrived like thunderclaps rolling through the hills, an invitation to join the Manhattan Project. It felt like the world was on the brink of something extraordinary, yet the shadows it cast were long and dark. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, David sought out his father in the shed. Sunlight poured through the cracks, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. He hesitated, unsure of how to bridge the gap that had widened between them since the news broke. "Dad," he began, his voice wavering, "I got the call. They want me on the project." His father turned, the lines of age and worry crisscrossing his face like a twisted map. "You don't know what you're getting into, David. This is playing God with fire." Each word cut deeper than any wrench could manage. As David's heart raced, he walked a fine line between pride and shame, trying to articulate why this meant everything to him. But the fear in his father's voice hovered like an uninvited guest, and David felt his words slip away. They fought over ideals, over what it meant to serve. David's hopes crushed against his father's unshakable skepticism. The moment they walked away from that exchange, David felt the echoes of their clash reverberate within him. The chasm seemed to widen, and the reverberations shook his resolve. Days later, when the atomic bomb was tested, the town exploded with celebration. David was, or at least he felt, an outsider looking in. He watched as his neighbors danced in euphoria, feeling as hollow as an empty tank. What had been his chance to make a difference now left a bitter taste in the air, an image of destruction cloaked in fireworks. That night, at a town hall meeting, pulled by an unseen force, he felt the urgency to speak. As he stood, voices rose and fell around him with acclaim and dissent. Feeling a storm brewing inside, he hesitated. But David could no longer ignore the weight of his conscience. "This achievement, it's extraordinary, but it comes with a great price," he declared, the depth of his fear surfacing as he shared his conflict. And his faces turned towards him, filled with conviction. He felt a flicker of hope mingling with despair. The future felt uncertain, like a light dancing just out of reach. Would his father ever understand? Would this town, blinded by ambition, find clarity in the chaos? David had stepped into the light, but where would his journey lead him next? David stood at the threshold of the town hall, the echo of his own words still ringing in his ears. The faces in the crowd swirled before him, a mosaic of confusion and awe, skepticism and hope. He inhaled deeply, trying to clear the haze from his mind. Was he mad to speak out? The excitement felt electric, but a shadow knotted in his stomach. He had awakened something, but what was it? As the meeting continued, he slipped back into the shadows, seeking a corner where he could think. Voices collided in passionate discussions. Some were heralding the project as the dawn of a new age, while others murmured of potential doom. David felt caught between two worlds, one that celebrated destruction in the name of security and another that feared the consequences of their power. His heart raced as he thought of his father's disappointed gaze, the bitterness with which his voice had dripped. In that moment, the shed's dusty corners came flooding back. He could almost hear their last monumental argument echoing through his mind. Have I betrayed him? A weight of guilt pressed down on his chest. Days turned into weeks, and the town celebrated an achievement that felt heavier than 1,000 stone blocks. David's name passed through conversations like a ghost, acknowledged but never truly seen. He resumed his work at the garage, but even the hum of an engine felt different. He found himself daydreaming, lost in thoughts of what the project could create, and the lives it could change, yet his mind spiraled to the lives it could destroy. One night, after a long day, he wandered out to a nearby field, staring up at the night sky filled with stars, a blanket of serenity that belied the chaos below. He recalled his mother's voice telling him about the universe, how each star was a beacon of hope. But what if their light was just a flicker against the darkness he felt creeping in? Determined to regain his purpose, he decided to share his thoughts with the town's youth. They were filled with energy, dreaming of a tomorrow that could burst forth from moments of creation rather than destruction. The week prior, he had spotted a group of teens gathering around a campfire, their laughter ringing against the still night air. This would be a safe space to vent his fears, to connect without the pressures of adult expectations. That Saturday, he invited them to the garage, telling them he wanted to hear their thoughts on the project. As the sun dipped low, creating gold and orange streaks across the horizon, the laughter soon gave way to speeches of ambition and concern. What do we do with that power? One of the girls asked, her brow furrowed in thought. Can we control it? This opened a floodgate of conversations. They jumped from thoughts about value, ethics, and family legacies to dreams of engineers paving paths toward peaceful tomorrows. Together, they drew plans for ideas that could harness the same atomic force for good, clean energy, advanced medicine, space exploration. But as David watched their fiery discussions unfold, a gnawing feeling remained. What if their enthusiasm was masked by naivety? What if this power that sparked such inspiration also harbored the potential for great ruin? He stepped back, feeling them rallying around a cause he didn't truly know if he believed in. As he excused himself for air, he couldn't shake the feeling that his own conflict had just begun. As he gazed back at the flickering flames, he knew he was at a crossroads. Did he just help ignite a spark in them, or was it a tide that would drown them all? He turned away, the cool night air mingling with uncertainty. Tomorrow he would face the council again, perhaps armed with these new voices. But he couldn't shake the worry. What if he was just signing them up for a battle he couldn't win? What lay ahead was unclear, but he could feel the stakes rising. Would he have the courage to stand firmly in the line of fire? The sun rose reluctantly, casting a muted light over the sleepy town. David rubbed the sleep from his eyes, barely stirring from the weight of yesterday's conversation with the youth. The echoes of their ambitions still resonated in his head, but underneath it all ran a thread of anxiety that he couldn't shake off. He poured a cup of coffee, savoring the warmth as it seeped through his fingers. Today would be different. He felt it in his bones. When he arrived at the council meeting, the familiar musty scent of the wooden hall greeted him. The air was thick with anticipation. As council members settled into their seats, murmurs bounced around the room. Something was brewing, and all eyes gravitated toward him as he took his place. It was a stark contrast to the cozy garage where he had felt safe and supported. Now he felt exposed. One of the council members, a wiry man with stark white hair, leaned forward. David, we've seen a significant interest in the project you've proposed. You have the town's attention, but we need to understand your stance better. The spotlight hung heavy. He took a deep breath, the words swirling in his mind like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm. I appreciate that, he began, feeling his voice grow steadier. But I'm not here just to bring a project to life. It's critical we discuss what this power truly means for our future. We need to be asking the tough questions. Can we harness it for good? Or will we let it slip through our fingers like grains of sand? A ripple of murmurs spread through the council. Skepticism and intrigue intermingled in equal measure. But David couldn't back down now. He pressed forward, bubbling with a mix of apprehension and fierce determination. I spoke with the youth, and their ideas opened my eyes. They dream of a world where technology fosters growth rather than destruction. But they also understand the risks. I believe we owe it to them to ensure we don't merely pursue power for power's sake. An older woman, her eyes sharp as blades, countered, but I assent that what innovation requires. Risks? The potential for failure is always present. Yes, David replied, but failure at what cost? We have an obligation to guard not just our future but the future of generations to come. Are we willing to play with fire without knowing how to control the flames? We have the chance to pioneer something extraordinary, or we could unleash chaos. More murmurs erupted, voices overlapping as they debated back and forth. David's heart hammered in his chest, half hoping they would hear him, but also fearing the weight of responsibility that came with it. He watched as one of the younger council members, a bold woman with fiery red hair, raised her hand, silencing the room. Everyone, she said, her voice firm. David's right. The potential is staggering, but our priorities matter. Perhaps a task force could be created, including David and the youth, to bridge these voices together. We must tread lightly. The atmosphere shifted. Something was igniting. Encouraged by her proposal, David felt the creeping shadow of doubt start to lift. Could this be a turning point? A chance to weave the fabric of their community into something greater? As the meeting adjourned, he stepped outside into the crisp air, heart racing. Uncertainty still lay heavy in his chest. Would they truly listen? Would they lay the groundwork for something incredible, or brush him aside as just one voice among many? Later that evening, David found himself back at the garage. The kids from his earlier meeting had gathered, their faces illuminated by the glow of the overhead lights, alive with ideas. They shared stories about harnessing power, how their visions didn't just filter down through generations but had swelled into something tangible. Yet even among the laughter and the fervor, David could feel the nagging question return. Had he done enough to steer the tide? As the night wore on, he listened to them talk and plan, their hopes flowing freely. He admired their fire. It lit a pathway through the shadows that lingered in his mind, but the fear of the unknown simmered just beneath the surface. How clear was the line between creation and destruction? Would they conquer together, or would they falter? There was so much left to discover, for them all. And David couldn't help but wonder, as he felt the warmth of community wrap around him, where this journey would lead next. Would they find harmony between ambition and caution, or was he forgoing the very safety they sought? David looked around the garage, filled with eager faces and vibrant ideas. The hum of discussion melded with the scent of fresh paint and sawdust, a reminder of the creativity that thrived within these walls. It was a stark contrast to the sterile confines of the council chamber. He felt invigorated yet slightly overwhelmed. Okay, everybody, he said, finally breaking into the whirlwind of thoughts. Let us focus. How do we take what we've talked about and make it reality? What's the next step? The youngest in the group, a girl named Lily with boundless energy, jumped in. We need to showcase our ideas. Get other people excited. Maybe a community fair? We could set up booths, demonstrate what we believe in. Great idea. David smiled, feeling the spark of inspiration. But we need to make sure people understand the implications of what we're proposing. It's not just about excitement. It's about responsibility. Trevor, an ambitious boy with a knack for tech, added, what if we create a presentation that explains the risks and benefits? We could show how our project can change lives for the better and address the fears the council has. David nodded, feeling his heart swell with pride. Here were the voices of the future, grasping the weight of their efforts. In the dim light of the garage, he felt the hope shift within him, pushing aside the doubt that had lingered all day. The laughter and chatter rolled on as the group began divvying tasks, each one lit up by the possibilities ahead. Designing flyers, practicing speeches, creating visual aids. David could almost see the vision taking shape, tangible and bright. Just then, the garage door creaked open, and in walked John, an older man from the community known for his experience. His calm demeanor often provided a comforting presence, but tonight, he seemed uneasy. "Mind if I join?" he asked, glancing at the lively discussions. "Of course," David replied, welcoming him with open arms. That as John settled into the fray, David noticed the lines of concern etched on his face. This was no normal visit. Leaning closer, John lowered his voice. "David, I heard about the council's response, and I'm proud of how you stood up for the youth's vision. But you know they might not be ready to embrace something so transformative." "What do you mean?" David asked, the excitement around him suddenly dimming. "Change can breed fear. Some council members won't back anything that disrupts the status quo. You might face resistance. Be prepared for pushback." David felt a knot tighten in his chest. He had hoped they were ready for this leap. He glanced over at the kids, still bubbling with enthusiasm, oblivious to the shadows lurking. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the lights flickered, the power surged and sputtered, plunging them into darkness. Gasps filled the room, perhaps from more than just the sudden lack of light. "Everyone stay calm," David called, though his own heart quickened. In the unexpected silence that followed, the weight of John's words echoed loudly in his mind. Was this a sign? A warning wrapped up in an ordinary power failure? Or was it simply a mechanical glitch? As one of the kids fumbled for the flashlight, David felt a pull of urgency. Changes were coming, both in their community and in his own understanding of responsibility. Once the light returned, the excitement resumed, but David couldn't shake his concern. Blending ambition with caution was no easy task, and he feared the balance would all too easily tip. As laughter returned to the room, David felt a new challenge lingering on the horizon. Would they secure the future they dreamt of, or would their path fracture under pressure? The question settled heavily in the air, surrounding him like an uninvited guest. And as he watched the kids continue their planning, he feared they were on the cusp of something great, but wholly unpredictable. What happens when ambition meets the realities of the world outside? Would they rise above or fall beneath the weight of expectations? David took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unease that clung to him like a shadow. The energy in the room was infectious, and he appreciated the way these kids threw themselves into each task with such fervor. Lily was already sketching up posters, her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. Trevor was discussing his tech vision with a couple of others, animatedly gesturing while trying to explain some intricate software that would help them validate their ideas. "Hey, David, look at this," Lily exclaimed. She held up a brightly colored poster that read "Change is coming," decorated with doodles of trees and smiling faces. It made him smile even amidst his worries. "Awesome, Lily. That's the spirit we need," he said, feeling a little buoyed by her enthusiasm. Yet, the nagging voice of caution echoed louder in his mind. John's warnings loomed heavy. He wanted to believe everything would be fine, that the excitement in this room would translate into action without a hitch. But doubt lingered at the edges. "All right, everyone," he gathered them back to focus. "We need to assign tasks clearly and make sure we keep the timeline in mind. We want a strong presentation to the council that balances our vision and their concerns." Heads nodded, and they quickly started discussing each role. David watched as the discussions flowed naturally, voices overlapping yet harmonized, a collective determination building. But a reminder of reality intruded again when he caught John's anxious look from the corner of his eye. Just as David prepared to voice another motivational thought, the garage door swung open unexpectedly. A group of older teens, local skaters known for a rebellious reputation, entered. Their casual, loud energy clashed starkly with the intense atmosphere within. "What's up, nerds?" one of them scoffed. David tensed, feeling the tension spike. This was not how he wanted things to unfold. "We're working on something important here," he called back, trying to keep his tone steady. "Oh really? Didn't he take you for the type to join the Let's Change the World Club?" The apparent leader smirked, arms crossed defiantly. A wave of insecurity washed over David as Lily and Trevor exchanged uneasy glances. "Can we help you?" she asked hesitantly. "Help us? Nah, but my buddies and I heard you're trying to pull some big presentation. Sounds like a waste of time to me." The taunts seemed to fill the space like smoke, heavy and cloying. David sensed the children's hope faltering, at least a little. Surely they didn't need this distraction now. But he also recognized a chance to confront the fear of dismissive attitudes head-on. "What if we show you how it's not a waste?" David challenged, his heart racing. "What if we show you how we can make a real impact?" The group exchanged bemused looks. The leader shrugged casually. "Whatever, man. Prove it." Silence fell again, thick, pressing down on David. How could he turn this moment around? What if he had miscalculated the goodwill in this community? He felt an unexpected rush of adrenaline push away the fear. "Let us invite you to the fair. We'll reveal our project, our ideas changing how the skaters and everyone else sees this town," he proposed, glancing around at his group. A spark flickered in Trevor's eyes, and they caught Lily's gaze, emboldening him. This could be their chance. The stakes felt higher. This confrontation might lead to the acceptance they desperately needed. "Deal. But you better come through on it," the leader grimaced, breaking into an exaggerated smirk. After they left, David felt a shifting in the room, like a gust of wind after the rain. The kids huddled again, exchanging back and forth ideas, their energy undeterred by the sudden challenge. "Did we just invite them?" Trevor laughed, disbelief and thrill spilling out. "Yeah, we did," David admitted, a smile breaking through. A wave of cautious hope started to replace his burdens. What if they could win over not just the council but skeptics like the skaters too? What if this was the very push they needed toward their futures? A new wave of determination rippled through David's chest. They were facing uncertainty, but isn't that what made this journey worthwhile? As they planned into the night, he felt a rush, an electric thrill of possibility. But with every step forward came the weight of what lay beyond the garage doors. What would happen if they got pushed back even harder? Would their fragile unity crack under the promise of confrontation? David glanced around the garage, filled with renewed energy. The chaos from the skaters seemed to have sparked a fire in the kids. Planning floated between them like confetti, each idea bouncing around, building toward something bigger. Still, an anxious knot tightened in his stomach. They had just thrown down the gauntlet. "Okay, we need to get organized," he said, trying to channel that exhilaration. "Lily, keep working on those posters. We need them to really pop for the fair. Trevor, can you start drafting some of the tech specs you were talking about? I think if we show them the tools we're using, it might just change their perspective." "Got it." Trevor nodded, his fingers already zipping over his laptop. David felt a surge of pride. They were taking ownership, rolling up their sleeves and diving in. But there was still that pesky whisper of doubt, lurking in the sidelines. What if we fail? He pushed those thoughts aside. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the kids who believed they could change their community. As the night wore on, ideas morphed into a visual medley on the walls. Lily's posters sprouted more colorful phrases and designs. "What if we stand up and take action?" Read one. Another boasted, "Together we rise." The themes resonated with hope, a chorus of possibility. "David, what do you think?" Lily called out, her voice bright. She was standing in front of a massive sheet, all her energy radiating as she pointed at her drawings. He stepped closer, examining the words and doodles that danced across the paper. "This is amazing, Lily. Your excitement is contagious. No one can overlook this." The group's laughter and chatter filled the space. But in the back of David's mind, John's fearful warnings and the suspicious expressions of the skaters lingered like heavy clouds. They were risking so much, but for the first time, he felt that the majority of their power lay in their unity. Then, a thought hit him. What if they could actually bring the skaters on board? If they could unleash their passion instead of facing it as a rivalry, could it become an unstoppable force? "Hey," he called out, capturing their attention. "What if we reached back out to the skaters? Instead of seeing this as a competition, we can invite them to collaborate?" Lily froze momentarily, surprise washing over her face. You think they want to? Why not? David replied, feeling the thrill of a wild idea. They care about this community too. We just need to show them how all of our voices matter. Maybe if we work together we can change the narrative. Trevor chimed in, if we show them what we're really about they might feel included. Could lead to some real change. Uncertainty flickered among the group, but David's heart raced. The idea was full of potential. It wasn't just about proving themselves anymore. They could unite different forces for a common goal. Let us invite them to brainstorm with us, David declared, trying to ignite that flame of hope in them again. Let us turn around this challenge and make it the bridge that connects us all. The chatter picked up as excitement rippled around the table, but he could see that fear still loomed. But what if they reject us? What if they come back with more ridicule? David swallowed hard. Then we'll be ready. We're stronger together, right? They won't expect us to stand up, at least let us give it a shot. The kids nodded, and David could feel the collective resolve strengthen. They could either remain tense, battling each other as rivals, or forge a new path full of collaboration. Let us do it, then, he said. We'll invite them back. Show them that change isn't about divisions. He loved the determination sparking in their eyes. That night wrapped itself in a blanket of possibility. They planned and plotted, ideas exploded and refined into goals. And with every new thought, excitement bubbled anew. Just as they were heating up, the door creaked open again. David turned, anticipation racing through him. Would it be the skaters? Or maybe a messenger with news for their project? We've got a lot to prove, he whispered under his breath. As the figure stepped inside, only one thought raced through his mind. How much more could they endure before the tipping point arrived? The figure that stepped into the garage was none other than John. His expression a mix of determination and confusion. The light from the overhead bulbs flickered, casting shadows across John's face as he took in the vibrant chaos around him. Hey, he said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty in his eyes. What's going on here? David's heart raced. We're getting ready for the fair. We have some big plans, John. Lily waved her arms excitedly. We're inviting the skaters to team up with us. Instead of fighting, we're going to show them we can create something amazing together. John's brow furrowed. Invite the skaters? You mean the same ones who mocked us? Yes, David replied, taking a step closer to John, needing him to understand. Exactly those skaters. It's time to cross that bridge. We can show them that we're more than just labels. John hesitated, glancing at the posters and the animated discussions of the kids. But what if it blows up in our faces? What if they laugh at us again? A hush fell over the group. David felt the weight of doubt creeping back. He remembered John's earlier warnings and the fear that had settled among them when the skaters had first shown up. But something else flickered in his chest, a fierce, unyielding hope. We won't know until we try, David said, his voice firm. Change doesn't come from silence. Comes from speaking up. And together we have a voice loud enough to be heard. The suffocating silence broke as Trevor jumped in. John, you know they're not all bad. We've seen them care about stuff about this community. If we're willing to drop our defenses, maybe they'll do the same. Slowly, John processed their words. He shifted his weight, vulnerability splayed in his posture. I just don't want to see all of you get hurt. The last thing we need is more negativity. But if you all believe this can work, I won't stand in the way. David smiled, feeling relief wash over him. Thank you, John. We need your support. You matter here. Lily clapped her hands, the sound cutting through the tension. We can set up a meeting. Make it fun. They might even be curious. The group buzzed with ideas again, exchanging suggestions on how to reach out to the skaters. The creative energy swelled, transforming doubts into defiance, and the dim corners of the garage suddenly felt alive, an incubator for change as they outlined their next steps. David felt a surge of anticipation. This was it. This was their moment to challenge the narrative, to redefine what it meant to be part of a community. But just as they were about to finalize their plans, A loud noise erupted outside, the unmistakable roar of skateboard wheels against concrete. The sound sliced through the garage, electrifying the air. David's heart sank. "Do you think it's them?" Lily's eyes widened. Without waiting for a response, David walked to the door. He pushed it open and was met with the sight of the skaters pulling up in a spray of color and sound. Laughter ringing out as they landed their tricks with effortless ease. One of the skaters, Jason, the loudest of the group, caught sight of David and his crew. Something flickered in his eyes, a mix of surprise and something more. "What's going on, nerds?" he called out, an amused smirk on his face. David stood frozen, a wave of uncertainty crashing over him. This was the defining moment. Would they back down? Would the kids behind him retreat? Or would they step forward? In that heartbeat of hesitation, he felt the undeniable pulse of possibility. "Hey, we're actually working on something important," he shouted back, his voice steadier than he felt. "And we'd love for you to join us." The laughter stilled. Skaters exchanged confused glances. For a second, David held his breath, their fates hanging in the balance. Would they engage? Would they respond? Or would this end in more laughter, more separation? The tension in the air was thick, and in that moment, David realized the real challenge had just begun. He clenched his fists, ready to face whatever came next. What would their answer be? Jason narrowed his eyes, eyeing the group huddled in the garage. A moment of silence stretched out, broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant sound of a car rumbling down the street. The skaters exchanged glances, and David could see a flicker of curiosity in their faces. "What's so important?" Jason finally asked, lowering his board slightly. The smirk was still there, but it softened just a bit. David took a deep breath. "We're working on a project for the fair. We want to collaborate with you guys. Show everyone what we can do together instead of fighting." A snicker erupted from one of Jason's friends, but Jason held up a hand to silence him. "Together? With you guys?" He chuckled lightly, but there was an edge to it, a mix of skepticism and intrigue. "Yeah." Lily jumped in, buoyed by David's lead. "We're tired of it being about divisions. We want to create something awesome, a showcase of creativity. And you guys have amazing skills we'd love to see." Jason tilted his head, seemingly weighing the suggestion. The group bristled as he glanced back at his friends, gauging their reactions. They looked skeptical but not entirely opposed. "Why should we? What's in it for us?" he finally replied, a challenging tone in his voice. David could feel his stomach nodding. This was it, the moment of truth. Because it could change everything between us. We can show the community that we're more than labels. We can inspire each other. What if this turns us all into something better together? A murmur rose among his friends, and David dared to glance behind him. He saw determination reflected in their eyes, the hope burning bright. But it wasn't enough. They needed to convince Jason. "What do you guys want to do?" David pressed, stepping closer. "We could organize a skate demo at the fair. You show your tricks, we set up something creative. It's all about blending our talents." The air hung heavy with anticipation as Jason rubbed his chin, his expression thoughtful. "And no more of that bullying nonsense?" "Exactly," John chimed in, finally finding his voice. "It's about respect. We all care about this community. Let us prove it." A silence fell, charged with possibility. Jason looked at his friends again, and David felt a flicker of hope. Then Jason shrugged. "All right, let us say I'm interested. What's the first step?" David's heart soared. "We can meet right now, brainstorm ideas. We figured we could set up a jam at the skate park, invite everyone, and make it a community event." Jason mused. His lips curled into a smile that caught everyone off guard. "You might be onto something, nerd. But I'm gonna need to hear from the rest of the crew." Grinning, David motioned for everyone to step forward. As they began sharing their ideas, excitement crackled in the air like static. The skaters, though still reserved, seemed to consider the potential of collaboration. It was a start, a small flicker of change igniting against the backdrop of doubt. Just as the conversation gained momentum, a loud crash echoed from behind. Everyone turned, startled. A crowd of local teens had gathered, drawn by the noise, and they were muttering about what was happening. "What's going on here?" one of them called out, eyes wide with confusion. David looked to Jason, feeling the pulse of energy shift again. They were on the edge of something bigger, but would this crowd support their efforts or push them back into the shadows of conflict? In that moment, as uncertainty loomed once more, David could only wonder if they could truly forge a new path together. Would this spark become a wildfire or flicker out? The murmurs grew louder as more teens approached, their curiosity piqued by the sight of the gathered group. Some stood on their tiptoes, straining to catch a glimpse of the action, while others openly gawked. It was a mix of skepticism and eagerness, and David's heart raced at the prospect of their first audience. Jason took a step forward, gripping his board tighter, his expression shifting from amusement to annoyance at the prying eyes. "Mind your own business unless you want in on this," he called out with mock bravado. The crowd shifted uneasily, but there were a few who stepped beyond the initial awkwardness. "Are you guys actually working together?" one girl shouted, her tone dripping with disbelief. "Like, actually? Isn't this supposed to be boring?" A laugh echoed from the skaters, but it wasn't harsh or dismissive. David could see Jason glancing around, gauging the reactions of both the crowd and his friends. "Maybe it's time for something different," Jason remarked, his bravado softening. "We're tired of being divided just like anyone else." That was it. David saw a glimmer of what could happen. Taking a step forward, he raised his voice to engage with the crowd. "We need everyone's help. We're thinking about this big skate show at the fair, and we want all of you to be a part of it. This isn't just about skating or art. It's about breaking down barriers." The crowd exchanged glances. Some faces lit up with amusement, while others reflected doubt. But the air buzzed with a burgeoning excitement that was hard to ignore. "What if it fails, though?" a boy from the group countered, arms crossed defiantly across his chest. "You really think we can work together like that?" David felt a knot in his throat. "I think we can," he insisted, his voice steadying with each word. "But that only works if we try. If we give it a real shot together." He looked around, catching the eyes of the skaters and the faces of the spectators. This could be the start of something incredible. A ripple of doubt cascaded through the crowd, but then Jason broke the tension with a sudden laugh. "Look, it's not going to be perfect. But if we do this, we won't just be a bunch of labels. We'll have created something new. Who's in?" As he said those words, David could almost feel the shift in the atmosphere. Nods of agreement flickered through the audience. "Yeah. Let us see what happens," someone called out, and a wave of excitement surged through the crowd as a few people stepped forward, ready to join the brainstorming session. Lily grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let's plan something everyone can contribute to. We need music, art, and maybe even some competitions." Her ideas flowed like water, each suggestion fueling the momentum. With the gathering buzzing with approval, they began discussing potential themes and activities. David felt as if they were all weaving a tapestry of unity and creativity before his eyes. Conversations sparked from every corner, and soon the garage became a hive of collaboration as time ticked by. The horizon deepened into shades of twilight. There was a palpable sense of camaraderie, the kind that made David's chest swell with pride. Finally, he caught Jason's eye, and for a moment, they exchanged a smile, a silent acknowledgement that change was possible after all. But just as they were about to finalize their plan, a loud cheer erupted from further down the block, drawing attention away. David turned to see a group of older kids, skateboarders and artists, joining the fray with their own shouts and loud laughter. "Looks like we've got competition," Lily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling mischievously. "Or maybe allies," Jason suggested, a thoughtful look crossing his face. They were on the edge of something unexpected. David couldn't shake the feeling that the night was just beginning, filled with opportunities to expand their vision. "Let us invite them in. If we're really going to change this community, we can't do it alone." The excitement hung thick in the air as they collectively pondered their next move. Would they extend the hand of friendship further or retreat back to safety? One thought dominated David's mind. Could they truly unite everyone under one banner? Would it be enough? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting fiery colors across the sky, David stood at the center of the garage, a whirlwind of ideas buzzing around him. The crowd had swelled, laughter, voices, and energy merging like a sweet symphony of hope. The fear that had shackled him for weeks lifted, replaced by a daring flicker of belief. This was their chance. "Hey, everyone!" David raised his voice, feeling the anticipation crackle like electricity in the air. "We're on the brink of something special here. Let us make it a celebration, a festival of ideas, where every voice counts." The crowd erupted in applause. Jason smirked, leaning against his skateboard. "All right, let us get this clear. No drama, just fun. We pull this off and we all win. We show everyone that when we come together, we can cook up defiance with creativity." Cheers erupted again, and David couldn't help but beam at the enthusiasm. A young girl from the crowd shouted, "How about we add skate competitions and an art showcase?" Her suggestion was met with an uproar of agreement. David felt every pulse of excitement ripple through his chest. This was at the moment they had all been waiting for. Feeling the momentum, David directed everyone to break into smaller groups. Some were tasked with designs for the fair, others with entertainment ideas, and a few with the logistics of making it all happen. Inspiration flowed freely among them, voices overlapping, laughter echoing. Together, they were building, not tearing down. After an hour of hard work, the plans began to shape. Music would span the day, showcasing local talent. Booths for art, food, and skate demonstrations would draw in the whole town. As David stepped back to take it all in, he realized something profound was happening. Bridges were being built, walls torn down. The garage hummed with optimism. He found himself near Jason again, whose usual bravado was tempered by a newfound sense of purpose. "You think they'll show up?" he asked, glancing at the busy groups. "They will," David replied, a quiet assurance settling within him. "We're giving them something to be a part of, something that matters." As the discussions continued, an older skater, Leah, who lived down the block, joined their group. The moment she stepped in, the chatter softened, eyes fixated. "Let me introduce some of us," she said, her tone commanding respect. "We could organize a bigger jam session if you want." The power of her presence drew hesitant nods. "What if we could even collaborate on the music?" Lily chimed in. "Maybe a fusion of different styles, hip-hop, rock, and some of that electronic flair." They were all leaning in, working together. Felt like magic unfolding. "Simon, let us grab more people. This needs to explode," Jason called to the growing crowd, and he sprinted out to gather those lingering outside. With every step, David felt a pull of unity. The community was pulling together. They were shedding their identities of rival factions, building something greater. Hours passed like minutes, the energy in the garage lasting long into the night. Laughter bubbled, plans were drawn, ideas exchanged. David could hardly recognize the tight knot of anger and division that had held them all captive. They were forming a tapestry of dreams, woven together by shared hopes and ambition. Finally, as the stars twinkled overhead, the last of the details fell into place. David glanced at the towering stack of sketches and plans scattered throughout the garage. Between them lay hope, fragile yet dazzling. He rested his head against a wall, feeling a wave of exhaustion crash over him like a warm tide. "Tomorrow," he said, voice barely above a whisper, "we'll invite the whole town to our very first fair together." The words hung in the air like a promise. He felt the warmth of a hand on his shoulder. It was Jason. "I never thought we'd connect like this." Jason's grin was genuine. "Good job today, man." The next day loomed heavy with anticipation. David woke earlier than the sun, excitement bubbling up within him. The fair would not only showcase their plans, but it represented a turning point, a moment of truth for Lankridge. He felt lighter, buoyed by belief in their path forward. When they gathered at the park, the sun broke above the horizon, illuminating their booth, vibrant with colors and energy. The scent of fresh paint and hot food filled the air. For the first time, everyone mingled: families, skaters, artists once adversaries united under one cause. All energy flowed towards the stage as David stepped forward, heart drumming in his chest. "Welcome," he called out to the assembly, a blend of nervousness and excitement coursing through him. "We're here to celebrate creativity, unity, and the hope that lies within our community." Cheers erupted from the crowd, echoes of dreams intertwined. Laughter filled the air, blending beautifully with the rhythm of distant music from local artists strumming their tunes. As the celebration unfolded, David mingled through the throng, taking in the smiles, laughter, and sense of belonging that wrapped around him like a secure embrace. He spotted his father standing near the back, his expression a blend of pride and relief. Tears pricked at the corners of David's eyes. This moment stretched into eternity, a glimpse of what had been believed impossible. He and his father, together, united by hope forged through the challenges they had both faced. This was only the beginning. David knew that their journey of transformation would ripple through generations, an unwavering legacy of hope. They had, against all odds, turned fear into unity, dreams into reality. The battle against uncertainty felt far less daunting now. And with that realization, the heart of the once splintered community beat, as one, a chorus of hope waiting to resonate into their shared future. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will continue this amazing journey. This is the moment to show your support. So leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more hearts with our message. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Your voice matters. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can build a brighter future.